What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. It's snowing outside, Ryan. It's the very, very festive here inside Highmark Stadium, where the Buffalo Bills just improved to, what is it now, 15 wins on the season? 14?
Yeah, and a perfect 10-0 at home.
And a perfect 10-0 at Highmark Stadium in what turned into a classic and probably a little bit too close for comfort for Bills fans. The Bills win 27-25. Lamar Jackson leads a late game, potentially game-tying touchdown late in the fourth quarter, but Mark Andrews drops a critical 2-point conversion. Bills end up winning this thing. Huge play by Rasul Douglas to capture the onside kick. We're going to get into all of it right here on Shout.
Yeah, what a great win for this Bills team, Matt. As you mentioned, Rasul Douglas, we talked yesterday, hasn't had the interceptions, hasn't had the defensive season that he probably has wanted this year after 4 interceptions 1 year ago, leading the team after coming in after following the trade deadline. But that onside kick recovery probably is the biggest play that he's had thus far.
Who are we brought to you by?
We are brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. And, pregame today, Matt and I headed over to Tops and we checked out all their great deals. Go get yourself a Victory Breakfast Pizza tomorrow. And if you don't get a breakfast pizza, check out their deals right now. Bacon, Hatfield Bacon, buy one, get one free. Thomas's Bagels.
There you go. You're a little bit too close. You're a little too bit close for me. That's going to be really shocking.
Gotcha. Thomas's Bagels, buy one, get one free as well. Chobani Yogurt, 10 for 10. Fresh fruit cups, you name it, that and so much more. Coffee creamer, 2 for 6 with an e-coupon. Head on over to Tops, get all those great deals, celebrate this big Bills win.
So we got a super chat here from Justin. Lamar Jackson pick fumble, first down at the 2-yard line in second quarter, no touchdown. Andrews fumble and drop pass. Thank you, Ravens. Pass rush on final drive was a joke. Listen, I thought at times today the pass rush didn't get home, but I thought that there were a lot of times where they made things, I just swallowed a snowflake, where they made things really challenging on Lamar Jackson. I think the big takeaway from this game was a defensive schematic. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a masterclass by any stretch. It was 450 yards of offense by the Ravens, but they said all week long the emphasis was taking the ball away, and they got the train rolling on that early. Lamar Jackson and company come out on that first drive. Listen, Taylor Rapp drops that touchdown. If you don't take advantage of those opportunities, the game potentially shifts. And we talked about it coming into this game. Turnovers are usually not something that you can count on in the playoffs, even for teams that are really good at it during the regular season. But, man, do the Bills come into this game, take advantage of their opportunities. And every takeaway opportunity that they had, I feel like they cashed in on it.
This is a team that has lived and died with the turnover this year, Matt, minus last week against Denver where they did force a lot of 3-and-outs. And, going into this game, the Ravens really downplayed the weather, the cold conditions in terms of it's not going to affect the outcome of the game. I think it did play a big role in terms of these turnovers. The interception by Lamar Jackson, he said he didn't look off the safety. That one was on him, but he just dropped the ball for his fumble. The Mark Andrews wasn't a turnover, but in the end zone at the end of the game, that 2-point conversion bouncing off of his hands. And then the fumble that Terrell Bernard punched out. So the Bills and their opportunistic defense shine through once again. And like you said, was not a masterclass, 400-plus yards on the ground, or total yards, I should say, to the Ravens allowed in that game. Run defense was solid in the first half. Then they gave up a lot of big runs in the second half. So far from perfect, but at the end of the day, they're the team that's advancing on to the AFC title game.
So Derrick Henry, in games where he doesn't rush for 90 yards this season, the Baltimore Ravens dropped to 2-6 on the season. So that was literally the key recipe, is try to keep him under that 90 to 100-yard mark in this game, and the Bills were able to have a lot of success. He really was only a factor in the game on that one drive. He went for 46 of his 84 on that one touchdown drive in the third quarter, and I thought for the most part, the Bills got to the line of scrimmage. Damar Hamlin had a tackle for a loss. It was a little bit of an up-and-down game for Damar Hamlin. He had a couple of really critical plays, some important tackles. He went with the guardian cap in this game because I think probably knew that it was going to be a little bit more physical, was going to have to stick his nose in there a couple times. He was really lost in coverage on the Bateman play that almost set up a touchdown on there, but the Bills got a big stop on first down. Who was that got the stop on that play? Was that Rousseau? It was a running play, and then they got backed up and they had to settle for a field goal.
Rousseau made the big play. I thought it was on second down on that drive. So he came up big, and you're right. Damar Hamlin up and down really should have had an interception on that play where it went for a long gain to Bateman. It kind of looked like he just let the ball go over his head, but it was an encouraging game for this defense with those stands coming up late. So there's a lot they can take out of this game. They have a matchup looming against the Chiefs, who their offense looks right. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of game plan Bobby Babich draws up, because he had a really good one here today. Like you said, keeping Derrick Henry in check. They were selling out the run in that first half, I thought. They were really, daring Lamar to throw the ball, and Lamar Jackson was throwing the ball extremely well. Minus those 2 turnovers, he did have a great game, taking nothing away from him. He was as good as advertised, but the way that they played this was perfect compared to that 35-10 loss where the first play of the game. In that matchup, Henry had run wild on the Bills for a touchdown.
The critical piece to this game, and we talked about it all season long, Lamar Jackson was the best quarterback in the NFL in terms of taking care of the football. Yeah. On this day, the best quarterback in this stadium at taking care of the football was Josh Allen. And listen, I was kind of sitting on my hands in the press box up there, kind of being a little bit of critical as we were having our conversation to Joe Brady. Like, you got to get a little bit more aggressive here. You're kind of lackadaisically really relying on that run game in the third quarter. And I thought that there was a little bit more creativity that could have been had. But what ended up happening in this game is what really smart on both their part, McDermott and Joe Brady, is to not put the ball in jeopardy, because each time the Ravens did that, I felt like it really bit them in the end. And listen, they come down. The Bills were playing a little bit of prevent on that last touchdown drive. I think that they probably would like that drive back altogether. And if Mark Andrews makes that play, then it turns over to Josh Allen hero mode, and you got to probably go down and try to get a field goal. And then you got to count on Tyler Bass to make that field goal. So there's a lot of things that were happening in this game. But I do think that kind of mentality and the way that this game played out, I'm looking ahead to the Chiefs game next week and thinking about how they've won so many games this season. That style is what I think has the potential to finally dethrone the Chiefs, is when you play methodically, series for series, and just try to win each back and forth that way throughout the game.
Yeah. So in the first half, the Bills and the whole game plan was nothing sexy with this offense. They were up 21-10 at halftime. They had the chance to double dip. And then they kind of stalled out. The Ravens made some great second half adjustments. And you're right. We're setting up there. We're saying, what are they doing? I know they're trying to take some time off of the clock in this game, but it wasn't the time or the place. And the Ravens come out, they scored 10 points to open the second half. They're going to have to adjust for Kansas City, which that's a thing that Joe Brady's done really well, that Bobby Babich has done really well. So the game plan wasn't the greatest. They were out, in terms of the overall yardage, the Ravens had a lot more than Buffalo in this game, but it's the final score that matters. And you can't criticize them too much, because they did exactly what they needed to do against this power-heavy run team that the Ravens have and this elusive quarterback that they have in Lamar Jackson.
But also there was an example late in this game that I think that they can harken back to the rest of the way, however long it goes, whether it's next week against the Chiefs, if they win that game 2 weeks in the Super Bowl against potentially a Philadelphia Eagles team that looks like the same kind of style of team, a really tough defense, an offense that's going to kind of stay in the game, is on that third down play when they had driven down in the fourth quarter all the way to the goal line. You have to have 2 plays there that get the ball forward quickly.
Yeah.
You have Josh Allen. You have the most dangerous weapon in the NFL. You can't come away from that situation losing yards and then putting McDermott in the spot to where he's got to make that call to begin with. Now, I still kind of think a little bit more about going for it there. I don't have a huge problem with the decision to kick the field goal, because it gives you that 8-point lead. You can't lose the game on a touchdown. It gives you the opportunity to come back and get a field goal. But I don't take the time out there to think about it. You have to have in that moment. This is where people get real critical, and I know in the weeds on McDermott, but you have to in that moment know, okay, I planned for this situation. I know what I'm going to do here. I don't have to waste the time out. I'm sending Bass onto the field to kick the field goal. And that's where I think they just have to be a little bit crisper and fine-tune game management-wise next week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, burning a timeout in a close game like that, you can't have that in a matchup like this. But I do agree with the field goal decision that Tyler Bass and Sean McDermott had there. Bass was great. He was the one that shifted momentum a little bit back in Buffalo's favor in the second half with that 51-yard field goal, kicking the chip shot there. Another thing they could have done instead of burning the timeout was just take the delay of game, go back 5 yards. It would have taken it from, I believe, a 21-yard kick to a 26-yard kick. So, again, Bass has had those issues with the missed extra points, some missed close field goals this year, but he was great tonight in this game. And you can't lose the game, like you said, when you go out by 8. So I agreed with the decision there, because the Bills were driven back. It was a 4th and 2 or long 2 or a short 3 is what McDermott said in the presser tonight. Ultimately, he made the right call, pushed the right buttons, and the Bills are moving on.
We got a super chat here from Aaron Prevost. Dorian Williams standing up Derrick Henry at the goal line. That goal line, that was your X factor in this game. That was a huge spot. So that must have been his play. And I think Rousseau made the play on second down. So huge play there. We got another super chat here. Comes from Thomas Falzone. Let's get this thing up in the chat here. Touchdown at the ends, concerning but incredible game, and shout out 5 years of great content from Shout, hoping we can get that next win. Yeah, man, we were talking about this today, man. We've been crushing on this and cruising on this podcast for 5 seasons now. I was looking at today's episode. This is number 561, I believe, or maybe 562. Maybe it's 662. I don't know. I got a lot of numbers in my head, right? We're talking about all these numbers, 199 yards for Derrick Henry in the first game. They bring that number down by more than half in this matchup, which is huge. Let's spend a minute on Terrell Bernard here because, man, Damar Hamlin was handing out flowers left and right. He gave some to Micah Hyde and the impact that he's made on everybody, including Cole Bishop, since he's returned to the locker room. And who knows? Taylor Rapp's injury, maybe that's an opportunity for Micah Hyde to get up on game day next week against the Chiefs. But he also has given his flowers to Terrell Bernard, who continues to find a way to make big plays. If you go back to that Chiefs game in the regular season, it was Bernard with the interception that helped cinch that game in the second half. He makes a big play, the defensive captain in a big spot. Absolutely huge play for Bernard. And listen, that's kind of what this defense needs to be. And Sean kind of alluded to it when he was talking in the post-game press conference. They heard the noise all week, hearing the people talking about them being too small, that they weren't fast enough, they weren't good enough on the defensive side to deal with this great Ravens offense. And they took all that and they believe internally of what they are. And I think today proved that this unit, as put together whole, can go up against any offense in the league. And I think, honestly, this Chiefs offense is a little bit of a step down from the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I think that defense on the Chiefs is a step up next week. It's going to be a really challenging game.
Yeah, so Terrell Bernard, though, one thing I want to say is you have to feel really good for this guy. Last year, suffers the injury, tries to work out all week to get ready for that game against Kansas City, and it just doesn't happen. So now you get him back this year. He's in this second matchup against the Ravens, missed that week 4 matchup, comes up, and once again has this game-changing play with the Ravens driving a wide open 16-yard completion to Mark Andrews. And when Andrews tries to make a move after the catch, he punches the ball out. And not only does he jar the ball loose, but he's right there to recover it. A huge play and a huge moment for Terrell Bernard. And now, 1 year removed from missing that game against the Chiefs, he's going to be in the AFC title game playing against that team where, as you mentioned, had a big interception where Patrick Mahomes was targeting Travis Kelce in that first matchup. So he's certainly going to be an X factor in this game next weekend.
Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We're on our way to 13K on YouTube. Let's get that thing going. We're also brought to you in part on this episode today, very special 2-week feature on the show, futurefans.com. Have you ever tried to teach your kids the sport of football? It can be challenging. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of different tactical explanations that you have to give. I mean, every time I sit down with my son to watch a game, it's an adventure. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just last night, Matt, watching some playoff games with my son, Owen, he was asking me why something was called a holding penalty. I had to explain it to him where the player was grabbing within the pads and what makes that a holding penalty. So something like Future Fans can certainly help out.
It's a brand that helps little kids become big football fans by embedding the rules of football into parallel games and activities that make it easy for a kid to understand. The way Future Fan teaches in the storybook-led activity boxes is absolutely genius. Instead of trying to explain downs, they have a kid play a beanbag toss game with things like 4 tries and 6 points embedded into it. And then later, they connect those games to football through the storybook that guides the entire Future Fans experience. The dads who have invented this have figured it out for the rest of us. It's only $49.99 at futurefans.com. But if you use the code SHOUT, you'll get their biggest discount ever, 25% off. That's futurefans.com, code SHOUT.
That's a great read, Matt. Check out Future Fans. Help your children learn all the ins and outs of this game of football that we enjoy so much covering as we have another game. Glad that you mentioned, what is it, 561, 661 for this show. We're going to have multiple episodes this week and so much more. Glad we continue to get it going here.
Come on in, Joshua.
Here's my guys. Hey, first of all, this guy right here, great question about Tyler Bass.
Well,
seriously, in the Sean McDermott press conference, because it's so true. Like, you were like, look, you didn't waver on this dude. He goes out, kicks a 51-yarder. It's like, look at Talbot, always on point. Loved it. Buffalo Kickoff Live pregame show, you almost had the exact score right. Late in the game, you had the score on the money. You picked 27-19, and until they scored that late touchdown, you would have been the one.
If you're ever looking,
keep watching these two. They're the best.
If you're ever looking to spike those ratings in Olean, New York, just get me on, Josh. Just get me on.
Big ratings hit in Olean. All right, Joseph with the super chat. Great win, but Brady's conservative play calling is concerning. Have to trust Josh more in these spots. I agree. And I think part of it was you saw on the road, you saw a very careless Lamar Jackson, but specifically the Baltimore Ravens offense and the way that they were operating. And I think that Joe Brady got lulled a little bit into a conservative mindset in the third quarter. You really had him on the ropes with that 21-10 lead at halftime. If you come out aggressive, listen, I'm not saying just go to like a 60 or 70-30 split pass run, but at least 50-50 and maybe leaning a little bit more on play action out of some of those run sets that you were spamming in the first. We have to go back and watch the replay. I don't know if all the sets were exactly the same, but Brady's notorious for finding a formation he likes and then spamming it over the course of a game. You kind of do set yourself up to hit a big hitter. There was a couple times in this game I'm like, man, run play action on that game, take a deep shot down the field. You have Keon Coleman on Tre'Davious White, one-on-one coverage. Come on. And I know a lot of people, by the way, were complaining about the OPI that should have been called on Keon against Tre'Davious White. And I get it. It was a bad missed call. Just as egregious was the missed call on Deion Dawkins. So those things equaled out in the end.
Yeah, it certainly equaled out in the end in this matchup. And, one thing I'll say about Joe Brady is I think this whole game plan, the offensive game plan, it meshed with what Bobby Babbage and Sean McDermott wanted to do with the defense. Ball control, keeping the ball out of the Ravens' hands. But I do agree with you 100%. Third quarter, that's when the Bills needed to come out a little bit aggressive. They're up 21-10. If you get up 28-10 there early in the third quarter, it really probably makes the Ravens more one-dimensional. You don't get that run game going on the ground the way that it did. So I will say, though, that Joe Brady is in lockstep with what this defense is doing, and I think this was a big part of the game plan was if you can keep the ball away from Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, good things can happen. It just stalled out in the second half.
All right, we're going to be wrapping this up in a few minutes here because I just noticed that my keyboard is freezing. All the snow that's falling on the keyboard is freezing. We got the computer out here. We're absolutely madmen, but not as madmen as Ryan Fitzpatrick, shirt off, getting the people going right over there earlier today. That was pretty special stuff. Let's kind of move forward. We're going to literally react to this game tomorrow in a big way. Once we get a chance to watch it back, obviously a bunch of big defensive performances. We'll cover the outlook of Taylor Rapp if he's not able to get back for next week. On the offensive side, the way they ran the ball in the first half. Listen, it wasn't like unbelievable numbers. Like the total isn't going to blow you away. I think it was 176 yards on the ground for the Ravens. The Bills didn't do that, but it's the efficiency at which they did it. Even in the second half, there were a couple big time key runs where they were able to keep drives going, and they ended up winning the time of possession in this game. And a big reason why was converting on key runs. And there were a couple of people on social media, including, I think it was Jeff Schwartz, maybe Mitchell Schwartz. They had a great tweet, basically said, people don't understand how good this Buffalo Bills offensive line is, but over the course of the playoffs, they're starting to find out.
Yeah, Aaron Cromer's done a great job coaching up this unit. The unit itself is as talented as any in this league. And shout out to Buffalo's backs and Josh Allen. That unit averaged 4.4 yards per carry in this game, 3 touchdowns on the ground in the win. And, I talked to Ty Johnson after the game, and I said, what does it mean where a game where you recover the onside kick, you have the chance to seal it, and you're the one that's brought out there and you get a chance to run the ball? He says it meant a lot. It meant, the confidence they have in this team, get the ball in my hands and I'm going to try to move the chains and end the game. And that's exactly what he did.
If you want to become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider, this is the week to do it. Get your 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month. After that, we'll bring you everything on the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, epic matchup number 4 throughout the week at 716-528-6727. And we're also brought to you the Shout text line by Carrie C. Byer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give him a call, 716, I forgot the number, but go to litrolaw.com right now and make sure you let Carrie know that we sent you. Okay, Chiefs Bills, final thoughts here. What's your first thought about this matchup?
Final thought. I have to go with the Chiefs. Kind of push that total to 8-1, Matt. The first tweet.
He's doing it at the beginning of the week.
The first tweet that I saw after the game, after the pressers, and I opened up my phone, was thanking me for choosing the Baltimore Ravens. So, no, I mean, this is the matchup that the Bills have been waiting for. This is a chance to get past that team that has been the thorn in their side in the playoffs. And if they can do that, you look at the NFC and, no offense to the Commanders, no offense to the Philadelphia Eagles, but if they can slay this giant of Kansas City, you'd have to like their odds in that Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, the Bills match up, I think, really well with the Chiefs. I think it's a much better matchup than this one, but it's still on the road. It's at Arrowhead. They're going to be the favorites in that game. But again, it feels like this was always going to be the story, right? Like, after all these years and all these disappointments, to finally get over the Chiefs in the most crazy way after you vanquish Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and this Ravens team. You take out a number 7 seed in the Denver Broncos, which everybody was ready to say was ready for that next level. Now you go on the road. Everybody's going to be picking against the Bills, against Patrick Mahomes. That's kind of what the season has turned into. The negativity, the lowering of expectations. The Bills don't do anything right. You weren't hearing that on Shout. And I was telling people at the show the other night, this is the way they built this thing. The offensive line, Josh Allen, and the transformation and the evolution of his game, it's all going to be on display next week. And I'll tell you right now, I know you're picking the Chiefs. I'm not going to wait till next week. I'm picking the Bills. I said who's winning this game, Bills versus Ravens, is going to advance to the Super Bowl. And I think the Bills are going to win this Sunday in Kansas City, and I cannot wait to bring it to all of you from there. Ryan's going to stay back here just in case, and then, who knows? We'll see what's going on in New Orleans. Last time we went to New Orleans, you were an absolute renegade out there.
We had a time. We had quite the
time.
Dude,
this guy put down, what was it, 2 hand grenades? Did you do 2 of them?
Something like that.
It was yeah, he's a lush. Anyway, for Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino from Highmark Stadium. Bills 27-25 over the Ravens on the AFC title game. See you, everybody. I got to dry off my computer.